the mission and vision of the American Islamic College, to me, pretty much now synonymous with the work. I believe in the transformative power of education, and not just education that is informative, but in education that is transformative, education that really changes how we live. But I think that the Muslims of America need a place that they can come as a Muslim space. This is their space. It belongs to them. Hey, Assalamu alaikum, Mahan.
Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You know, I feel like we're smiling through tears tonight. It's so hard to know that, you know, innocent lives are being shattered. I mean, we've known that all the while, because there's been carnage and genocide all the while in these Ramadan unscripted sessions this year and last year, that the horrible things have been perpetrated even while we're gathering. And tonight is such a beautiful evening here in Chicago. The full moon of Ramadan is shining like a pearl, you know, like a big pearl in the sky, and we are just again witnessing what the Qur'an would call asfala safilin, like the worst of the worst, and you know, what we read about in Surah Al-Baqarah and other places, where the angels knew, because God had given them the foreknowledge, that we would spread corruption and spill blood and do all the things that we see, you know, being done right now. And it's just such a heavy time. And, you know, you're at the University of Notre Dame, you know, Dr. Mahan Mirza, executive director of the Ansari Institute for Global Engagement with Religion. Like, you know, no. But, you know, as educators, I think I really feel like why we're doing this is to dispel the darkness, right? And that's to me really going even back to Plato's cave, that the whole purpose of education is the same purpose as what the Qur'an talks about, when the Qur'an talks about prophecy, that God, through the revelation, God extracts humans out of darknesses and brings them into light. And so this is to me, very resonant of Plato's cave, the idea of the philosopher guiding people out of these caves of ignorance and into the light, into something that's real and life-giving. And I feel like we're in a world now where perpetrators are parading as victims, where attackers are parading themselves as engaged in self-defense, and human lives have become so cheap. Just so cheap. And the one passage, I mean, I know that we're past this in our hasty march through the Quran this year, but I go back to Surah Al-Ma'idah, when we read that we ordained for the Banu Israel, for the children of Jacob, that if anyone killed a single person, right, unjustly, unless it was for murder or for doing something corrupt in the land, it would be as if he had slain the whole of humanity, right? Like, is that heavy? You know, sometimes people think that Islam is a warmongering religion, and you know, I remember many years ago asking Professor Mahmoud Ayub, our beloved blind professor of Quranic studies. I remember asking him about this many years ago when we hosted him at the University of Oregon. And he said, you know, like, why would the Quran even talk about violence? He says, you know, the Quran speaks about violence in order to restrain it, in order to bring it under the rule of law and the rule of it as a restraining force. And so there's nothing glorified about fighting in Islam, or at least in my reading of the Quran. It's like the weight of killing a single person unjustly is tantamount to killing all of the people. And so, and
Which is,
the
yeah.
go ahead. And so I just feel like this is the text that's really, you know, asserting itself in my heart, tonight as we watch bombs flying and schools being destroyed, and we read reports that no food, no water, nothing is getting into Gaza now. No aid is getting to the people. They're being, again, starved to death, and like these lives are being treated so lightly, and yet here we are.
Mm.
I don't know how all this looks to you, but I feel like it would be an injustice for us to just dive in you know to this delightful company and faithful exploration of the Quran tonight without recognizing the heaviness of the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a lot of what you said. I'm just marveling at the metaphors for sight and blindness and light and darkness, and even when you mentioned Mahmoud Ayub, who was blind but he could see,
Oh,
and
may God be
this
merciful to you. Yeah,
Allah yarhamu, and then this war that's just started. I'm seeing very different kinds of wars depending on where I look. And so there's one war, and really, I mean, the narrative is more complex than I think it has been in the past. Like, people are asking questions, and public opinion is not, usually when a war starts, everyone rallies behind the cause, and there's a bump that the commander in chief gets. But I don't see that happening this time. But nonetheless, if you look at kind of the mainstream, it's very tortured kind of narrative. And then when I look at, my feed that's coming from the region and people I follow, it's a totally different kind of reality. So what we see requires so much discernment, and there's, people say the fog of war for a reason. But, I'm seeing that the State Department has asked all Americans to evacuate all of the Middle East. Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, obviously Syria. I think it's Jordan, Egypt. It's on the list. So I don't know what they're expecting, and in terms of escalation at this point. But and I just saw the embassy in Riyadh was on fire, the U.S. embassy. Obviously, you've mentioned, Iran is getting hit extremely hard, some incredible history there. And the living, the souls that are experiencing that. I just, you lose your lights sometimes in a windy, stormy weather, and you feel vulnerable. Can you imagine being under heavy bombardment? Yeah, so it is heavy.
but I feel like
and
go ahead.
Just one more thing. It's mass confusion. Like, originally, I'm from Pakistan, and now there's a hot war between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and it's not even Pakistan and Afghanistan. I gave the khutbah on Friday, and I emphasize it's the Islamic Republic of Pakistan and the Islamic Emirate of Iran, Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, and the Islamic Republic of Iran, for that matter. And they're hitting, the United Arab Emirates and Qatar, and it's just a kind of a free for all.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're here in the in the West, and there's a whole force there in our name. So it's just massive. It's hard to. It's perplexity
But I think part of our role, and I think one of the reasons why we're doing this, why not just Ramadan Unscripted, but why we've chosen to pursue careers as educators, is to try to, it's not just the fog of war, it's the fog of life, to try to, you know, train, not train, but to try to enable people to think with critical intellects, to think with critical minds, to be asking questions, to be probing things, to be seeking knowledge at a time when the the powers want to prevent the questions. They want to prevent the seeking of knowledge, and I think that this is so important. And so, tonight I think really even though we're now we're on the 15th night of Ramadan, which is right in the middle, and so there are 15 partitions of the Qur'an that have been recited and have been studied up till tonight, and I think that because we stopped last Wednesday, there are 6 or 7 partitions of the Quran that we could go to. But I'm just wondering if it would be okay if I think the jewel in the although there are many gems, but the real jewel to me in this batch of partitions of the Quran is the story of Joseph. And I don't know if you're okay just starting in the middle tonight of all of these beautiful chapters that we've been given, and to then see where the Spirit takes us.
Sure. And this is the single longest narrative in the Quran. So Ahsan al-Qasas, it's the best of stories. And there's a lot of actually vision in this. Joseph, first of all, the vision, the dreams, the interpretation of dreams, which are kind of visions that they see and then interpret. And then Joseph, his father, Jacob, who loses his vision in sorrow. But he sees other things, so there's a vision that is physical and material, but there's a vision that's spiritual and inner, and he doesn't lose that by any means. And then in the end, the prophet, he says in the Quran, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا.
Yeah.
Like this is my way. I call towards أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ, I call towards God. عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا. On this, I'm calling on the basis of a vision.
Yeah.
An insight
So
that I have. And those who follow me, not just me. وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. This is right towards the end. So how is the surah speaking to us, and how should we go through it?
Well, I just want to start with the question about what Joseph's prophetic gift was. I mean, he had obviously had many gifts, including the gift of physical beauty, right? That he was, such a captivating presence, right? That's clear in the surah, and also in the biblical traditions. But in the sixth ayah of sixth verse of Surah Yusuf, Yaqub, Jacob, is speaking to his beloved Yusuf about his gift, and he refers to Joseph's gift as ta'wil al-ahadith, which is really the interpretation of events, right? And so I almost feel like the story of Joseph almost begins, it almost takes us into a dreamscape where the events of this world are like dreamscape events that require interpretation, meaning that nothing is as it seems to be, that everything requires, and the basira, right, that we reread it toward the end. The basira is like the ability to see what's going on under the surface. And we see this come out several times, and including the story of from Surah Al-Kahf, the Surah of the cave, later on in even today's partition, but where we have Moses alayhi salam, who's taken on this sort of mystical adventure where he learns that nothing is as it seems to be, and that there's a deeper reality, a deeper meaning behind the events. And so I to me, the story of Joseph is one of those. It's like almost like a portal that shows us that what we're experiencing is almost like the dream. And and I'm reminded of a statement attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, where he said that that this life is like a dream, and when we die, we wake up. And so there's this feeling for me as I enter into when I enter into the surah of Joseph, I feel like I'm entering into this mystical state where this world, the events of this world, become the dream that need interpretation. And
Nice. So I'm looking at the study of Qur'an. It says the interpretation of events refers to the ability to interpret dreams. I'm going to keep reading just this paragraph. In traditional Islamic psychology, this art entails knowing the source of dreams. That wheel from go to the source. True dreams are said to come from an angelic source, whereas false dreams come from the lower self or a demonic force. Regarding Joseph's interpretation of dreams, it refers to these other verses. The interpretation of events, this is what you said, ta'wil al-ahadith, it also referred to the ability to discern the hidden meanings within scripture. And so it refers to different interpreters here by Bawi. And then more generally, it can refer to the gift of being able to discern the true nature of things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I mean, this is. Yeah. So I don't know how you feel, how we should.
Here,
I think most people know the basic outline of the story.
So let's read key portions. Maybe we'll start with the first dream. So when Joseph said unto his father, "O my father," this is verse number 4. Yeah. "Truly I have seen 11 stars and the sun and the moon. I saw them prostrating before me." He said, "O my son." He said, "O my son, recount not thy vision to thy brothers, lest they devise some scheme against thee. Surely Satan is a manifest enemy unto man. Thus shall thy Lord choose thee and teach thee the interpretation of events." So that's how the study Quran translates it. "And complete his blessing upon thee and upon the house of Jacob, just as he completed it upon thy forefathers, Abraham and Isaac. Truly thy Lord is knowing, wise."
Okay, read one more, ayah 7.
"Certainly in Joseph and his brothers there are signs for the inquiring."
Yeah. It's interesting. We almost have a parallel happening here between what we saw earlier with Iblis and Adam, upon him be peace. The jealousy, where Satan was jealous of Adam. It's interesting in the Quran, Satan never questions God's oneness or God's divinity. So Satan's rival is not with God. His rivalry, it's with Adam. And here we have the same thing. It's the same kind of Iblisian, if we can say that, the same kind of jealousy that Joseph's brothers had for Joseph, and they thought in their twisted minds, right, that if they kill him or banish him, they do it. They know it's a sin. They know it's like wrong. But then after that, they'll be good, and their father's love will be now for them and not for Joseph. So their jealousy of Joseph was assumed, I guess, the 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 scarcity of their father's love, that Joseph was receiving too much love, and so they wanted to remove him from the picture, and and therefore earn their father's love. And so it's a kind of Iblisian story of jealousy. Cain and Abel, same. We're back to that. We're kind of back to this, the human condition and the core of I guess violence within the human heart and within human history, and even right now we see that somehow, some way, uh,
Hmm.
we rationalize it so that somehow it makes sense to us to do something wicked in order to achieve something good.
Yeah,
Or
or to yeah, or I mean, what was their motivation was a kind of envy. Um,
yeah,
yeah, and it's the same that I'd never thought of it this way before. It's the same with Iblis. You made me from fire, and you made him from clay, and so istakbara. This I should be better. I should be more recognized than I am, and it's because of this other that I'm not, and so I have to do wrong to this other in order to get my place. I mean, I suppose this is the impulse, right? That is the downfall, and it manifests in personal relationships, in families, but also perhaps between nations and tribes. It's a bit archetypal, and maybe this is why there's the signs for the seekers, the inquirers, Lissa Eileen, and it's in some ways the archetypal story that if we could maybe get past this impulse, things will be well. Uh,
yeah, and
there's another character in here, the father, who's protective and has inclined. He's got favorites, but
yeah,
maybe he doesn't say it, but they perceive it, and he's trying to be protective. Um, and one of the things that I found interesting, let me just allude to this, and
mm,
is he says certainly in Joseph. Remember when they said, "Truly, Joseph and his brother are more beloved to our father." So this is the brothers who are worried that our father loves him and his brother, who are supposed to have been the two brothers that were from this full brothers.
yeah.
They
I think
came later, so they were much younger.
Joseph and Benjamin, right? His
And
little brother.
Benjamin, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Benjamin, Benjamin. And so they said, "Our father is in manifest error. Slay Joseph." So they're planning to get rid of him. Uh, and then one of them, he says, "No, no, no, don't go all the way." And you see his conscience will come back in. They'll say, "Maybe we just put him
Mm.
in the depths of a well." So they go to their father and they say, "O father, what ails thee that thou dost not trust us with Joseph? Truly we wish him well, and send him forth with us to frolic and play. We shall surely be his keepers." He said, "Truly it grieves me that you should go with him, and I fear that the wolf may eat him while you are heedless of him." And this is eventually what ends up happening, right?
Right.
They take him, and then they say the wolf ate him. But it's the father who gave him this idea, gave them this idea. Like it's almost he disclosed his fear to them.
Or
That
is it or is it because Yaqub himself is seen as a messenger and had some kind of foreknowledge?
right, but he told them his
Yeah.
fear, and then they used it against him.
Right.
I'm not sure if that has any significance, but I've been thinking about that. That
Yeah.
maybe if he had kept that to himself, I suppose they would have come up with something else.
Yeah.
Wallahu a'lam.
But even when they brought the the shirt that was stained with false blood, and they told this tale to their father, he was obviously greatly grieved, but he somehow knew when he says sawalat lakum anfusukum, like amran, like you've made something up, right? It's
Right.
almost like you've concocted something, right? So he
Yes.
knows that something wrong was done and that Yusuf is no longer there, but he doesn't believe their story.
Yes, he doesn't. And which verse is that?
This is 18.
Okay,
Okay,
18. Is that where
right.
Sabrun Jamil, right?
Right. This is where it says Sabrun Jamil Wallahu Musta'an. But
Sabrun
just before
Jamil.
that, he says, Bal sawalat lakum anfusukum amran, like
Yes,
your souls, like you've concocted something, right?
right. But you see, he doesn't then take them to account or investigate,
No.
right? At least it doesn't tell us. He goes to Sabrun Jamil, beautiful patience. Patience is most fitting, I have here, and I think it just translated here as beautiful patience. This patience where you're completely have turned over your grief to God. Like, there's a grief that you live with, that everyone has to know you're grieving, and you're constantly bringing it up, right? And he kind of internalizes it in a way, and directs it to God. I don't know.
I mean, he's hearing like the most horrific thing that a parent can hear, right? And but instantly he clings to. I mean, how would you define sabrun? Sabrun jamilun, like patience is a beautiful thing, and God is the only helper in what you have described or what you have said. Like sabr to me is like more than patience. It's almost like tying yourself to the mast in a storm at sea, or it's almost like refusing to respond to to the um, the literal situation. And yeah, I don't know.
Here I'm reading it here. Upon hearing the brothers' blatant lie and seeing their false evidence, Jacob exclaimed, "Beautiful patience." So just literal translation, Sabrun Jamil. It's really hard to kind of capture something that it evokes in you, at least, even with my very poor Arabic. Sabrun Jamil, in beautiful patience, which refers to a kind of patience that causes one not to complain to anyone but God. Some interpret it to mean, my patience is or will be a beautiful patience. Thus, beautiful patience is an expression used at times of extreme grief to find solace in the fact that patience will triumph in the end and that the difficulty will eventually pass. God is the one whose help is sought against that which you describe. That's the next part. Which means Jacob sees God's help in bearing the lie that his sons were telling him concerning Joseph's death. I mean, there's incredible lessons in here, but when we're wronged in this way, and you think about, we want to make it right. We can't live with it. We want to take people to account. We want justice. And it's the exact opposite here. What do you think of that?
This is really interesting because this surah, I mean, I'm not evading your question. This surah, as we go full circle, right? We know that Joseph is thrown into a well, right?
Mm.
We don't know much about what was happening to Joseph inside the well, psychologically, emotionally, but we know that he also had some inkling, some foreknowledge that somehow God was in control. He's sold into slavery. He's falsely accused of a crime and thrown into prison. So, like, all these things happen to him, and because of what his brothers did. So they initiated a whole series of events
Right.
that led to all of this suffering for Joseph. And at the end, upon him be peace. And then at the end, right, the story, when he's welcoming his parents
You're going,
back, his family.
you're going too quickly. Yeah, go ahead.
He says, God has been so good to me, right?
Right.
And he attributes the evil actions of his brothers to Satan. So that Iblisian connection is like, even for Joseph, like he doesn't hold his brothers to account in a conventional way. I think in at the end, I think that they see why he was their father's favorite. And so they accept kind of his chosenness and his specialness at the end because they see it so clearly. But he doesn't hold them to account in the way we would in a
We would. Yeah,
conventional sense of justice.
that's right. And you'll see that this actually this is a new theme that's emerging through this conversation. That even when he asked for the recompense, for the chalice that they hide, and the king's law. I was just reading through some of these sections earlier. The king's law is that the punishment will be different, but the punishment is actually voiced by the brothers, that the punishment will be the one who committed the act. And so that's how he was able to keep his brother. Otherwise, he would have been, punished and then returned. And so there's a different, order of justice that's being invoked. For some reason. I mean, I guess you don't have to be sticklers of the law. Even the trick that's played. I mean, we're running ahead. We should probably read through it. The trick that he played to get his brother back is not it's a sleight of hand. It's and so he makes up something, right? A crime that the brother didn't commit, but there's a greater purpose. And so I suppose in some ways the rules are not being followed by anyone. There's a deeper reality that's functioning.
Right. So everyone's story is at the literal level, not the reality. Right. So the brothers are in a panic because now their son or their little brother now is being kept by the Aziz, right? Or by this guy that they don't know is their brother in Egypt, and they're panicking. And so they don't, the literal story that they're experiencing has a hidden meaning. Joseph's journey has a hidden meaning. There's a part, even, in when Joseph is going through all of these terrible things, there's a line in here that says, and God was ghalibun ala amrihi, that God was in total control of Joseph's situation. So God was allowing Joseph to go through all of these calamities,
Right,
in order to eventually be raised up and be exalted. And Joseph is also doing something similar to his brothers. He's guiding them through a kind of calamity that he's orchestrated in order that they may come to some kind of contrition and some kind of,
right.
No,
it's lovely. I think we might, because you and I are into the story, we might be being cryptic for those who haven't been, read it or need a refresher. So let's continue. So so the brothers are jealous of him. They throw him in the well. The father is grieving, but he says beautiful patience. And then this caravan comes along and finds him in the well. And they pull out water from the well, and there's this young boy, and Ya Bushra Hadha Ghulam. Dr.
Yeah.
Timothy always, that's his favorite expression. When I know, at least when I walk down the hallway and he sees me, he
Yes.
says, Ya Bushra.
Yeah. Hadha ghulam. Oh,
Hadha Ghulam.
like good
The-
heavens. Oh, good fortune. Here's a man, a human being.
So they sell him, they take him and they sell him in Egypt. And then he grows up in this household of this, high-ranking official. And
But
so it says,
but they
go
wait, wait,
ahead.
wait. But they bought him
Mm.
just for a few dirahim, for a
Yeah, a small,
few, like a few
paltry
coins.
sum. Yeah,
So it was almost as if Joseph's value was also not seen, right?
right.
He was undervalued, and so the Quran makes a point of that it was just a miserable sum that they spent to acquire him. Okay, keep
Yeah,
going.
and yeah. So when he reaches maturity, we give him wisdom and knowledge, hukman
Mm.
wa ilman. Thus do we recompense the virtuous. So, he grew up and he was virtuous. I mean, he's always already, in some senses, chosen through the dream.
Yeah,
And so, but she in whose house he was staying sought to lure him from himself, seduce him.
yeah,
She locked the doors and said, "Come thou." He said, is an incredible narrative here in the Quran. He said, "God, you my refuge. Truly, He is my Lord and has made beautiful my accommodation. Verily, the wrongdoers will not prosper." So she inclined toward him. And the translation I have is he would have inclined toward her, but I think
yeah.
it could also be, and he did incline toward her.
Mm-hmm.
Had he not, but he was, saved. He had seen a proof. Had he not seen, and he would have acted had he not seen the proof of his Lord.
Yeah. لقد
And
حمت بي وهم بها
Hamma
لولا.
biha,
Yeah.
and so it could be he would have inclined had
Unless
he not seen, or he did incline, but then he held back
because
because he,
because God revealed to him
yes,
something. Yeah.
something, and he protected him, proof from his Lord, Burhan. Thus it was that we might turn him away from evil and indecency. So I guess there's an aspect of, you can be in a compromising situation, and we have this, the appetite of the soul that can fall at such moments. But God protected the likes of Yusuf alayhi salam.
Mm.
Truly, he was among our sincere servants. So there's if you're sincere, there'll be some extra protection. And then they race to the door. So the scene is she's running after him, and he's running from her, while she tore his shirt from behind, and they encountered her master at the door. And so there's this,
Dramatic scene.
traumatic scene, and the master comes in. It's like, what's going on? And so she said, what is the recompense for one who desires ill toward thy wife? So she throws him under the bus.
Yeah.
It says he was coming after me. And so, all right. So the story, there's a very, engaging type of narrative here. And he defends himself. He says it was she who sought to lure me from myself. And so then the story continues. They're like, all right, they have a discussion, and this is a big deal. And so one of them says, look where his shirt is torn from. If it's from the front, then she's right. And if it's from the back, then he's right. And so it was from the back. And so he's exonerated. But now kind of rumors start to spread. And so the women of the town, I'm just paraphrasing to move
Yeah,
through.
that's good.
Yeah, so the women of the town, they start to blame. Zuleika is the name that comes in the sources,
Right.
to Yusuf and Zuleika, and it becomes a huge, mystical kind of story of love. And
Yeah.
so then she's like, don't blame me. And so she calls all the women to a banquet, and then brings Yusuf out, and he's supposed to be an extremely handsome, individual. And so when they walk out, the women who are at the banquet are distracted, and they cut their fingers because they've been given knives or whatever for the food.
Right. I mean, they don't cut their fingers off, right? They just
No.
they're so mesmerized by Joseph's beauty, alayhi salam, that
Right.
they accidentally, like cut. They forget what they're doing, and they, instead of cutting their food, they,
Yeah.
cut their own fingers. Yeah.
Exactly. And so now, basically, where are we? This is.
So it occurred to them that it was best to throw him in prison after that scene.
Yeah, and so well, she says so. God be praised. This is no human being. This is not, they're talking about Joseph. This is like an angel.
Yeah.
And so she said, "This is the one on whose account you blame me. Look at you. I indeed sought to lure him from himself, but he remained chaste. And if he does not do as I command, he shall surely be imprisoned, and he shall be among those humbled." And so then Joseph, he's like in a bind, and he says, "My Lord, prison is dearer to me than that to which they called me."
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
a powerful line. Yeah. Rabbi as-sijnu ahabbu ilayya. So
right.
Prison is more beloved to me. The idea of going to jail is more beloved to me than what they're asking me to do.
Yeah, and I feel there's something here where when the father said, I fear the wolf will devour him, and then the brothers used that against the father, like basically just made that story come real. I remember reading, I should probably double check this, it's been a long time now, in graduate school, the tafsir of Abdurrahman as-Sulami, who Haqa'iq at-Tafsir, he was this mystic, and my dissertation advisor, Professor Bovering, we would just read that in our graduate seminars. And we were reading the Surah Yusuf, and he says, here, if Yusuf had not said prison is more beloved to me, God would have saved him from the women and from prison. But because he said prison is more beloved, God put him in prison. This was his reading. And
interesting. So in a way, Joseph's statement foreshadows what's about to happen.
Yeah.
In the same way that Jacob's statement earlier foreshadows what's about to happen. Interesting.
Yeah. And then later on he says, "Mention me to your Lord," and then he forgets, and Satan made him forget. So there's something interesting there where the fears are coming true, and the desire, when it's voiced, doesn't come true right away, at least. But let's get there. So he goes to prison, and there he sees, he encounters two other prisoners, and they share a dream with him. So one of them said, these are the other two prisoners, "Truly I see myself in a dream pressing wine." The other said, "Truly I see myself in a dream carrying bread atop my head, from which the birds eat. Inform us of its interpretation." So now they're asking Yusuf alayhi salam to interpret their dreams. And what is the word here? For the bita'wilihi. Nabitna bita'wilihi. There's the word, inform us.
Same word. So it means that literally ta'wil is from awwala yu'awwilu, like to turn. So it's nothing is what it literally seems to be. So it's a meaning. It's like everything is a metaphor. So
but it's from
now the same word is being used for dreams as it was used before for events.
Yeah, but it's from awwal, right? Awwala yu'awwilu ta'wilan. to make first to go back to kind of an original true meaning of sorts.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But it is interpreted the truth and meaning. So then he says, all right, one of you is going to get crucified and the crows will eat from his head. That's the guy who saw the bread. And the other one will be serving wine to the king. And this is what ends up happening. And so when the wine person is being released, Yusuf alayhi salam says to him,
mention me to your Lord.
Yeah, mention me to your Lord.
Qur'ani, yeah, and Rabbika.
Yeah.
This is 42.
But Satan caused him to forget to make mention to his Lord. And so I was reading this earlier, and he says, mention me to your Lord, but Satan caused Joseph to forget to mention his Lord as he was making this request. And so he made him forget. I don't know if that's...
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Satan caused him to forget remembering his Lord, in which case it would mean, that could be one possible meaning.
Yeah, although the pronoun is... Yeah, the pronoun is generic.
Yeah, so he's saying in which case it would mean that at that particular moment when Joseph told the wine carrier, mention me to your Lord, he forgot to remember God. But it could also mean that what it sounds like more that when he said, mention me to your Lord, the prisoner who was being freed, Satan made him forget to actually do that. But then the king sees a dream and no one can interpret it. And so the wine carrier at that point, many years later, says, oh, there's this guy in prison. I forgot to tell you about him. And so they go back and ask him, and he gives them an interpretation that there'll be famine and you should preserve food, for 7 years, and then, eat what you've preserved. And so, I mean, there'll be a good harvest and, preserve it, and then there'll be famine and then use it. So about, 7 years of harvest and 7 years of famine, about 14 years, 15 years of the agricultural cycle there he narrates. And so the king, wants to bring him to him, and he says, but wait, first exonerate me. And so he said, ask the women about this episode. And so the women then confess that actually it was us who sought to seduce him. And so then he's released, and he winds up in the court of the king, who gives him a high station, over the treasures, khaza'in al-ard, so over the treasures of the kingdom. And he puts himself forward. He says, I am trustworthy and wise, and so I will safeguard your treasures. And so he appoints him there. All right, so this is now he's in the court of the king. He's honored, and the famine hits. And so people come from all around because they've,
including his brothers.
Yeah, they've got, they've planned for this, and they can provide granary from their stock that they've preserved to everyone who's coming, from far and wide. And so the brothers come, and they bring, apparently 10 of them come, and they bring 11 camels. So Binyamin's camel, but they didn't bring Binyamin because the father, I think, still doesn't let him out of his sight after what happened to Yusuf.
Jacob and he said, trust him now to take Benjamin.
So he says, all right, I'll give you food for 10, but you not the 11th, because you have to bring him to me. I want to know he's real. And so they go back and they ask their father again, can we take him? We'll be careful with him this time. And the father is worried, as he was in the case of Yusuf. Maybe we could read that part.
Yeah, this is at 66 then. He says, never will I send him with you, and you swear a solemn oath to me. And they swore an oath, and then and then he allowed them to take Benjamin.
Yeah. And he said, "Oh, my sons, okay, enter not by one gate, but enter by separate gates." I suppose we can keep thinking of, keep going into what the meanings of all these things are.
Right.
Yet I cannot avail you aught against God. Judgment belongs to God. And so they enter, as he says, from various different sides into the city. One interpretation of this is so they don't come in as a big, family of brothers and draw undue attention to them. And again, the
Well,
evil
it's
eye.
interesting because in the beginning, the brothers refer to themselves as an osba,
Right,
right? As like a strong group. And in
right.
a way, now they have to be divided. And so the unity of their group is kind of, in a way, symbolically broken up. But then they
Yeah.
enter into Joseph's presence.
Yeah. And so they enter. When they entered upon Joseph, he drew his brother close to himself and said, "Truly, I am your brother."
So, but secret, right? It's
Yes,
like he tells you
secretly.
in secret. Yeah.
So do not be distressed on account of what they used to do. And when he had made ready their provisions, he put the drinking cup into his brother's saddlebag. Then a herald cried out, "O you men of the caravan, truly you are thieves." So they said, what are you missing? He said, "We're missing the goblet of the king." And so, "For whosoever brings it forth, there shall be a camel load. I shall be its guarantor." They said, "By God, you certainly know that we came not to work corruption in the land. We're not thieves." They said, "And what will be the recompense for it if you are liars?" Said that its recompense will be that he in whose saddlebag it is found, he himself shall be its recompense. So they themselves offered the agreement. So then he began with their baggage, and before the baggage of his brother. Then he removed it from his brother's baggage. Thus did we devise a scheme for Joseph. So it was found in the brothers where they had planted it, and now they're like, we get to keep him. And so the eldest, who had said, actually, throw him in the well instead of doing away with him in the beginning, he's completely distraught that we've done it again to our father. So he says, "I'm not coming back with you because we don't have the younger brother to take back, and I'm not going to." So he's distraught, which shows that people have a conscience, but they act despite that conscience, but it weighs on them.
Yeah.
Right? It eats them up, and now he's at a point where it broke him with this new event.
And now okay, we're gonna have a repeat of Jacob's statement that that somehow they've concocted something. Right?
Yeah. So they said, "Oh, Viceroy, he has a venerable aged father, so
Right.
take one of us in his place." And they said, "No, we can't do that. We have to stick to the agreement. This is the guy who stole it, and he's the recompense." So they despaired of swaying him. They conferred privately. The eldest of them said, "Do you not know that your father has taken a solemn pledge from you before God? And earlier you neglected Joseph," so he's like distraught. And anyways, he stays there, and then he says, "I'm staying here," and he says, "Return unto your father and say, 'O father, verily your son has committed theft, and we bore witness to that which we knew, but we are not keepers of the unseen.'" So like this is basically this is the truth now. This is what we saw. "So ask the town wherein we were, and the caravan with which we approached. Verily we are truthful." So like basically, don't take it from us. Ask whoever knows of the story now.
And then what does Jacob say? Exactly what he said when they lied about
Yeah.
Joseph before.
They didn't believe him. "Nay, your souls have seduced you in this matter. Beautiful, patient.
Same. Amran. Same.
Right.
فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. And
Yeah,
patience
beautiful.
is beautiful, and perhaps God will bring everything back to me, for he is indeed full of knowledge and wisdom. Mm,
And then he remembers Joseph. Oh, how great is my grief for Joseph.
mm. Yeah.
They said, by God, wilt thou go on remembering Joseph till thou art ill to the point of death, or till thou hast perished? He said, I complain of my sorrow and grief to God alone. And that's Sabrun Jamil.
Yeah.
And I know from God that which you know not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of tafsir material here where he had a conversation, according to one narration, with the angel of death. And he said, no, I haven't taken Joseph's soul. So he knows he's still alive somewhere. Anyways, and he's longing for him. So, oh, my sons, go and inquire about Joseph and his brother. So he still got this hope. He says, go back and ask about both of them, and despair not of God's comfort. Truly, none despairs of God's comfort save the disbelieving people. Now, obviously, he's a prophet, and I wonder what the lesson is for us, Dr. Timothy, because we don't see like he sees. And could we be delusional? But I suppose, if we keep out hope all our lives for something that's been lost, that we might still get it back. Like, at what point do you let go?
Yeah, I don't know. I almost wonder, again, I've never put the story of Joseph together with the story of Moses, upon them be peace, both of them. The story of Moses in Surah Al-Kahf, the story of the cave. But they're both almost like parables to show us the way the unseen world works. And Jacob here seems to know something, or he may not know everything, but he knows that something is at work behind the scenes, or on a deeper level, that the literal meanings of things are not, like, it's not adding up. And so he sends them back, right? And then and so they go back, and then Joseph introduces himself. He reveals himself to his brothers, and he says, I'm at 92 now, that this day, no blame is on you. Like, after everything that they did, God will forgive you, and he is the most merciful of those who show mercy. And there's a sense, and again, and we know, like, through the echo chamber of religious history, as one of my professors used to talk about, that how the imagination within the monasteries was that scripture was like the echo chamber through which they saw everything. And so we know that this is the same line, at least according to one narration, when the Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, when he came back to Mecca, after the battles, after the people being killed, after all the persecution and everything that happened, the people of Mecca asked him, what will you do with us? And he said, today I'll say to you what Joseph said to his brothers. There's no blame on you. So at that, to know that, at least according to that one narration, the Prophet Muhammad was, upon him be peace, was thinking about Joseph at that moment. And in that moment, because of his magnanimity and forgiveness, Mecca became a Muslim city, like, it just, like, instantly. And so Joseph then sends his shirt home with the brothers. So now they know who Joseph is. They bring the shirt home, and they give it to their father. And when they cast it upon their father, he regains his sight. And then they bring him and they bring Joseph's parents to Egypt, and Joseph raises them on the throne. And he says in ayah 100, daddy, really, again, ya abati, it's like, daddy, this is fulfillment of my dream, my vision from of old, right? Remember, it was ahada ashara kawkaban, so 11 planets, and the sun and the moon. So the sun and the moon are his parents, and the 11 planets are his 11 brothers, and they're all bowing to him in the dream. And he says, and God was so good to me when he took me out of prison. So there's nothing but gratitude here. There's no resentment, just gratitude, right? Like, just imagine, like after you've been through all of this, there's just gratitude. God was so good to me when he took me out of the prison. And he brought you all here. And then he says, after Satan had sown enmity between me and my brothers. So it wasn't like their fault. In the same way, even the wife of the Aziz, the wife of the guy who bought him, in a way, like the Quran doesn't blame her, right, for having desired Joseph, because like she was a human being. And of course, like all the women, when they beheld Joseph, they were all so mesmerized by his beauty. And in the end, she comes clean, right? She confesses. And so she's kind of like seen as a absolved soul, right? She confesses her sin, and the brothers are not seen to be guilty. That Satan had sown enmity between me and my brothers. Verily, my Lord understands best the mysteries of all that he plans. Surely he is full of knowledge and wisdom. So Rabbi Latifun, right? My Lord is so subtle, right? And so gracious. So it's fascinating. And then as we could read it all, and it's just so good. And then in 102 it says, such is one of the stories of what happened in the unseen realm. So what's important about the story of Joseph is not what happened on the external literal level, is that it's one of the stories about al-ghaib, the unseen world, how the unseen world works, which we reveal by inspiration unto you, nor were you there with them when they concerted their plans together in the process of weaving their plots. Meaning you weren't there when Joseph's brothers were conspiring against him. But the Quran, but God was there, and God saw it all. And so this whole narration is given so that we can have a glimpse into the way the unseen world works. And maybe that I'm coming back to how we started tonight. Maybe that's what we're supposed to trust, that somehow, some way, even though the literal reality of what we're witnessing in the world is awful and heart-wrenching and terrible, that somehow, like the Quranic, the Yusufi message here is that, like, God has a plan somehow.
Yeah. And so the core lessons, beautiful patience that's envelops the surah from both sides. Maybe that's where you turn it ultimately over to God. And then the great pitfall of envy, the fact of being chosen and being blessed, but not necessarily being in control.
Right.
And then not holding grudges despite all the travails and harm, one might say trauma, in a sense, letting that be released through this relationship with the infinite. And if in this life things come full circle, to find forgiveness and mercy instead of revenge and retribution. And there's so much here for our time and for our moment that we started this conversation with the wars and the enmity that's in the world. that can
It's
maybe
almost as if the archetype just keeps playing in the world. It just keeps unfolding. And in Ayah 111, it says, there is in these stories or in their stories like a expression or instruction for people of intellect, li ulal albab, right? For wise people.
right.
It's not just an invented story, but it's a confirmation of what went before it and a detailed exposition of all things and a guide and a mercy for anyone who believes. There's a, so in a way, it's almost as if and I would imagine for the Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, his life was threatened. He was kicked out of his hometown. He had to flee. He had to leave everything behind. Like there was so much loss. And so in the story of Yusuf is like almost a comfort that, that this is, that God has a plan. That he was only exiled from his hometown. We later find out in order to return to his hometown, but to return as as an accepted prophet, as an accepted leader. Now, Joseph too was sold into slavery and falsely accused of a crime and all these things in order that he could be exalted, in order that he could be raised up. And so it's almost as if it's almost like something like in mythology, like when Joseph Campbell is studying the hero's journey, the journey has to go down, the hero has to go through all these tribulations in order to be exalted. And we're kind of seeing that as the archetype of the prophetic journey as well. And the Quran is going to tell us over and over and over again that we never sent a messenger, but he was reviled and mocked by his own people. And so there's this sense that this is a story that didn't happen just once, but it's happening again and again and again, that God's beloveds are hated and envied and abused, and yet they show their quality by how they endure and how they come out in the end.
I see we're at 1:08 minutes past the hour. Maybe if I can say a word about the structure as we conclude. There's a couple places. I remember Mustansir Mir, who wrote the coherence in the Quran based on, the Tadabbur Quran and work that's been done by Amin Ahsan Islahi in his work on the nazm, or the thematic arrangement. He looks at the surah, and I recall, if I read that a long time ago, where he says that it's basically a series of tensions that are building. So you have this dream, but then the problem with the brothers, and he goes into the well, and he's sold in slavery. Then he's kind of seduced by these women, and then he's in prison. And then, he has this dream, and then he interprets it, and then he's exonerated, and he's released, and he makes it to the, to the court of the king as a high-ranking figure, and then he has an incredible amount of power, and then he reconciles with his brothers, and then his father, and then the dream is, and so it's kind of a tension building and then releasing all the way through the end. And then there was the paper by Jawad Qureshi, won the Andrew Rippon Prize for this, where he looks at the ring structure. And so if you look from both ends, the dream is, he has the dream, but then in the end, the dream is fulfilled.
Right.
He goes into the well, and here he becomes, a high-ranking figure. He's seduced by the women, and then he's exonerated by the women, and in the middle, he's in prison. So there's some symmetry and then there's further layers of that symmetry, which is just wonderful to experience this at this other level of reading.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is one of the reasons why the Quran is so unique, is that it's just not a linear book with a beginning, middle, and an end. It's a collection of circles and spheres, and it's also a book that, we talked about tafsir al-Quran bil Quran, the idea of interpreting the Quran with Quran. Sometimes the hermeneutical key might be another portion of the Quran that actually gives you insight into this portion of the Quran. And so then, even tonight, for example, I was thinking of the story of Moses, in the Surah of the Cave, and how
Mm.
something similar is going on there. And so that kind of, in a way, maybe helps us think about this, and this helps us think about that. But it's the Quran is it's just a remarkable adventure, and
Mm.
every time we go through it, I think new things come out. And so
Yeah.
this is something that, I want, certainly those who self-identify as Muslims, sometimes it feels like the Quran is too great, too sacred, too profound for us to just roll up our sleeves and experience it for ourselves. But and that's one of the things I think that we're doing. We're not really engaging it as scholars. We're just kind of engaging it as brothers, trying to marvel and explore and sometimes just admire how it works. Mahan, thank you so much again. It's always just so good for my own soul to be reading with you, and
Yeah.
whether others are joining us and benefiting from that or not, is just such a beautiful way to celebrate Ramadan and to center the Quran in this blessed month, and also to renew our friendship. So, would you close us out with your customary way?
Yes. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العظيم.
Ameen.
Indeed, God has spoken the truth. That's what that means in the end. صدق الله العظيم. That's surah number 103. I invite people to go and read whatever translation that appeals to them. And inshallah, we'll see you on Monday.
Yes, inshallah.
Monday night, inshallah.
Okay, may God bless these remaining days and nights of this beautiful month, and make sure you go outside and look at the full moon of Ramadan tonight. It's beautiful.
Yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it's shining bright. MashaAllah.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Thanks so much.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.